Okay, hello students, I'm Dr. Divya. So today we are going to our new chapter, chapter number 3, Plant Kingdom. Let's start. Hello, can you hear?
Yes, ma'am.
What about others?
Ma'am.
Okay. So our next chapter is chapter number 3, Plant Kingdom. This is a very important chapter because so many new terms will be coming in this chapter, and this is coming under diversity of organism. This chapter is coming under diversity of organism, and from this nearly you may get 10 questions. That means 40 marks question you may get from this. This is having 16% of total weightage of NEET exam. So you have to be careful, or you have to be, means it is having more weightage. So new terms you have to note down. And in this chapter we are going to study the classification of plant kingdom. Okay. So what do you know about plants? We'll be having some general idea about plants, right? Plants are the producers. They are the main producers of ecosystem. And plant kingdom means the kingdom of organism. They have the chlorophyll pigment, which are having the chlorophyll pigment. Plants are having chlorophyll pigment. That's why they are becoming the main producers of ecosystem. And they have the chlorophyll pigment in the leaves. Then what and all you know about plants? They are multicellular. While studying the first and second chapter, we learned they have many cells like multicellular, and they are autotrophic, photoautotrophic. What do you mean by photoautotrophic? Means in the presence of light, they can synthesize their own food. Autotrophic means they are synthesizing their own food. Photoautotrophic means synthesizing own food in the presence of light, or with the help of light, and with the help of which pigment they are synthesizing food? With the help of chlorophyll and light, they are synthesizing their own food. So they are becoming the producers, main producers of the ecosystem. And then they form embryo. That means compared to the other organism, like we have learned about Monera, Protista, fungi, all these 3 kingdoms we learned. So compared to them, these plants, they'll form embryo. That means they have a little bit advanced character. And in fungi and all, what we learned, sexual reproduction is there, but that is by spore formation. Isn't it, Harshini? In fungi, what we have learned, sexual reproduction, how it is happening? Yeah, by a sexual spores. But here, how it is happening? In plants, they'll form the embryo. And another important character, plants have cell wall. They have a rigid cell wall. It is made up of cellulose. Plant cell wall is made up of cellulose. And they have reserved food material. In which form they'll reserve the food material in plants? Mainly, it's by they'll form the reserve food material form as starch. Mainly, they will reserve the food material in the form of starch. But In some cases, fat. Fat is also another form of reserve food material, but only in few cases. Mainly the reserve food material form is starch. And I said plants are the producers because they have separate or unique ability. Their unique ability to fix the solar energy in the form of, they'll fix the solar energy, and through which process, what it is called as photosynthesis. Through photosynthesis, with the help of chlorophyll pigment, they'll fix the solar energy. And these producers, they are the main producers, I said. So they'll supply energy in the ecosystem to all other living organisms. So they are called as the producers. So these are the general features. What are all the general features? They are the main producers of ecosystem, and they have the chlorophyll pigment in their leaf. And plants are multicellular. They are photoautotrophic. With the help of chlorophyll and light energy, they will synthesize their own food. And they form embryo. In sexual reproduction, they have embryo formation. And which is the next point? Plants have cell wall. That cell wall is made up of cellulose. They have a rigid cell wall which is made up of cellulose. And the reserve food material, most of the cases it is starch, and in few cases oil, fat. In the case of oil seeds and all, it's as fat. And then plants are producers. They are fixing energy, and they are supplying that energy to other living organisms. And next is, in plant kingdom, you can see this classification. The classification from Aristotle to present. Aristotle, he started the classification. I explained in the second chapter. Aristotle, he classified into plants and animals. So from that to present, there are two types of classification. We have divided that into two types, like historical classification and modern classification. What is historical classification? The system from Aristotle to Candolle. Both up to his studies, we classified under historical classification. Then modern classification, the classification pattern from Bentham and Hooker's classification to the present one which we are following. Up to that, it is coming under modern classification. So classification, we have divided the classifications into two, historical classification and modern classification. What is historical classification? Aristotle's classification to Candolle. Up to that, we are considering as historical classification. And next is modern classification. That is Bentham and Hooker. Which pattern Bentham and Hooker followed? From that to the present one, which we are following now. Up to that. That is coming under modern classification. And the objectives of this chapter, and after completing this chapter, you will be able to explain about plants with one better idea. You will get a better idea about plant kingdom, the whole plant kingdom. And you will be able to evaluate each phylum with the particular features, and you can compare the characters of each category. So after finishing the whole plant kingdom, you will be able to explain about plants with more clear ideas, because each phylum or each category will be having particular features. So by seeing the plant, or you can make out the category which it belongs to, or you will be able to explain the interrelation, the relation between two phylums or the organisms. So you will get a better idea about the plant kingdom, or the phylums or classes or classifications of the plant kingdom. Next is plant classification system. All organisms coming under this plant kingdom. Means all plants, they are divided into two sub-kingdoms. They are named as cryptogamy and phanerogamy. Cryptogamy and phanerogamy. First one is cryptogamy and second is phanerogamy. Cryptogamy means the word crypto means concealed or hidden. Any doubt up to this? The new terminologies which you are getting, you should note down all those things, okay? Otherwise, you can take a screenshot of all these things. So plant classification system, all organisms in the plant kingdom, they are divided into two sub-kingdoms, cryptogamy and phanerogamy. Cryptogamy means the word crypto means concealed or hidden, and gamy means marriage. So cryptogamy means they have the reproductive structures which are hidden. They have hidden reproductive structures. And the complete word meaning is hidden marriage. Note down that. Cryptogamy means or cryptogamous means they have hidden reproductive structures. The word meaning is hidden marriage. And this cryptogamy, they include all non-flowering plants. All non-flowering plants are coming under cryptogamy, the subkingdom cryptogamy. So what is the meaning? Cryptogamous means with hidden reproductive structures. And all non-flowering plants are coming under this cryptogamy. Next, second subkingdom is phanerogamy. What is the meaning of that word? Phanero means visible. Phanerogamy means visible. Gamous means, as I said, gamous means marriage. This is visible marriage. Means they have, in this kingdom, they have particular reproductive structures we can see. It is not hidden. It is visible. They have visible reproductive structures. So, all flowering plants and flowers are the visible reproductive structures in phanerogams. So, phanerogamy means they have visible reproductive structures as flowers. And all flowering and seed-bearing plants, those plants which are having flower and with seeds, they are belonging to this subkingdom, phanerogamy. And this kingdom is also known as spermatophyte. Note down this. Phanerogamy. This is also known as spermatophyte, which are having the visible reproductive structures. Sperma means seed. Phyton means plant. Seed-bearing plants. I said here, all the flowering and seed-bearing plants, they are coming under phanerogamy. Means with visible reproductive structures. They are coming under phanerogamy with visible reproductive structures and seed-bearing plants. These are called as spermatophytes because they are producing seeds. Sperma means seed. These new terminologies, all these things, note down. Then we'll see about the early attempts for classification. Aristotle, he divided the organism into two main groups. Aristotle's classification we have learned in the previous chapter. The Greek philosopher Aristotle, he tried to classify the living organism and he made them into two groups. Which are all the two groups? Plants and animals. And he further divided this plants and animals. Again, he further divided the plants into three classes. Which are all they? Herbs, shrubs and trees. Aristotle, again he divided the plants into he made only two kingdoms. All organisms he divided into two kingdoms, plant kingdom and animal kingdom. But plant kingdom again he divided into three classes, herbs, shrubs and trees. So that was Aristotle's classification. Which are the three classes? Herbs, shrubs and trees. And then during 1st century AD, Charaka tried to classify organisms. Charaka is called as father of Ayurveda. Charaka is called as father of Ayurveda, and he classified. And in his classification, 200 kind of animals and 340 kinds of plants, they were included. And he included all this in his writing Charaka Samhita. He included all these details in Charaka Samhita. Note down, Charaka is called as father of Ayurveda, and in his classification he included 200 kinds of animals and 340 kinds of plants, and in his writings he mentioned all these things in which one? Charaka Samhita. Next, plant kingdom classification. Plant kingdom is classified into, I said it is classified into cryptogamy and phanerogamy. Cryptogamy means with hidden reproductive structures. Phanerogamy means with visible reproductive structures. So, plant kingdom, the main classification is, it is classified into two subkingdoms, cryptogamy and phanerogamy. Then this cryptogamy or with hidden reproductive structures, that is again divided into Thallophyta, Bryophyta and Pteridophyta. So plant kingdom, it is divided into two, cryptogamy and phanerogamy. Again cryptogamy, that subkingdom is divided into Thallophyta, Bryophyta and Pteridophyta. And next phanerogamy with visible reproductive structures. That group is again divided into gymnosperms and angiosperms. Got it? First, plant kingdom was divided into cryptogamy and phanerogamy, which that is two subkingdoms, and in that cryptogamy with concealed or hidden reproductive structures, that is divided into Thallophyta, Bryophyta and Pteridophyta. In that Thallophyta, what is that? Thallophyta. Thallophyta means they'll be having thallus-like structures. What is thallus? The plant body which is not differentiated into root, stem and leaf. That is called as thallus. That is called as thallus-like structure. So Thallophyta is again divided into algae, fungi and lichens. They are divided into algae, fungi and lichens. Next, here phanerogamy, it is divided into gymnosperms and angiosperms. They have visible reproductive structure or they have flowers. In that angiosperms again divided into monocot and dicot. Monocot means they have single cotyledon. Dicot means they have two cotyledons. Got it? So plant kingdom is divided into cryptogamy and phanerogamy. In that, cryptogamy is divided into Thallophyta, Bryophyta, Pteridophyta, and Thallophyta is again divided into algae, fungi and lichens. And phanerogamy, it is divided into gymnosperms and angiosperms. In that, angiosperms again divided into monocot and dicot. Is it clear? This classification should be by heart. That's why I'm repeating. Okay, we'll go to the next slide. Systems of biological classification. There are three systems of biological classification: artificial system, natural system, and phylogenetic system. The three systems of classifications are artificial system, natural system, and phylogenetic system. We'll learn one by one. Artificial system of. This is the earliest system of classification. Artificial system of classification is the earliest or the first system of classification. In this classification, how they classified, they used only superficial morphological characters. Based on what they did their classification? Based on superficial morphological characters. Morphological means the visible features. Characters like color, number, shape of lip, then habit, all these things. The morphological, superficial morphological characters only they considered for this classification. And this classification, they considered mainly vegetative characters or on the or the androecium structure. So based on this or based on the superficial morphological characters or vegetative characters, they did the classification in this. And system given by Linnaeus, Carl Linnaeus. In biological classification, we learned this name, Carl Linnaeus, and based on androecium structure, his classification is coming under artificial classification system, Carl Linnaeus. He did the classification based on the structure of androecium. Structure of androecium was the character which he selected for his classification. So what is artificial classification system? This is the first or the earliest system of classification, and based on morphological features or the superficial features or the vegetative characters, based on that only they did this classification, artificial classification system. And Carl Linnaeus, his classification is coming under artificial classification system, and he considered the structure of androecium for his classification. You can see the structure of androecium was the basic selected character for his classification. And then this classification system is having so many drawbacks. Artificial classification system was based on few characters. See, just now I said Carl Linnaeus, he considered only the androecium structure for his classification. So they considered mainly few characters, few vegetative characters for their classification. So they separated, because of that, they separated the close relatives or the closely related species. That also got separated due to this kind of character consideration. So because this classification, they gave equal weightage to vegetative and sexual characters. So this is not acceptable. No one accepted this because vegetative characters. What do you mean by vegetative characters? Vegetative characters can be easily affected by the environment, or due to climate change and all, the characters may change. So we can't consider. See, in desert, if one plant is growing, and in normal climate, one plant is growing, the growth, if you are giving the same seed to both places, the growth pattern will vary, or that may show some kind of differences. So the vegetative characters that may change, or climatic effect will be there. The effect of climate will be more, or the environmental effect will be more on vegetative characters. So we can't consider those characters for classification because that may cause the separation of closely related species also. So in this artificial classification system, they considered vegetative characters or external characters mainly. So that is the main drawback of this classification system. And next is natural classification system. This natural classification system, this is developed against the artificial system of classification. And this is a 2D system. And it is based on natural affinities among the organism. This point wise you have to learn. Natural classification, it is developed against artificial system of classification. And this is in this horizontal system of classification, or this is a 2D system, and natural affinities they considered. Among the organism, the natural affinities they considered for this classification. And in artificial system, they consider only external features, I said. But in this, they not only consider the external features, but also the internal features like ultrastructure, anatomy, embryology, and photochemistry. All these characters they consider. And this classification, such a type of classification in flowering plants, it was given by George Bentham and Joseph Dalton Hooker. Bentham and Hooker's classification. That is coming under natural system of classification or natural classification system. And they classified plants, specifically angiosperms, and they published in 3 volumes of Genera Plantarum. Okay, this is about Bentham and Hooker's work. And this classification, Bentham and Hooker's classification, is coming under natural classification system. Is it clear? You're getting confused? No one is responding. Are you there? Is there any confusion?
No, ma'am.
What about others? No one is responding.
No, ma'am.
Okay. So in natural classification system, this they developed against artificial system of classification. And this is a 2D system. And they consider the natural affinities for the or as the base of this classification. Along with external features, they consider internal features also. Internal features like embryology, anatomy, ultrastructure, etc. So, such a type of classification was done by Bentham and Hooker, George Bentham and Joseph Dalton Hooker. Bentham and Hooker's classification is coming under natural classification system, and they published their work in Genera Plantarum. They classified plants, specifically they made angiosperms. They mentioned about angiosperms in their classification mainly. Next is phylogenetic system of classification. So we have learned about natural classification system, artificial classification system. Next is phylogenetic system of classification. Who coined the term phylogeny? Phylogeny means what? Prehistorical studies. To understand about the species or some group of organism, we'll get the prehistorical studies. Previous generations, we need to learn about previous generation, or such type of studies are called as phylogenetic studies. So Lamarck coined phylogeny. The term phylogeny is coined by Lamarck. And the concept of phylogeny came, who brought that? Ernest Haeckel. He brought the concept of phylogeny. These and all MCQs. Lamarck coined phylogeny, and the concept brought by Haeckel, Ernest Haeckel. And the phylogeny is the evolutionary history of an organism. What do you mean by phylogeny? The evolutionary history of an organism. And this is a 3D system of classification. Means not only the character, the historical characters also we are considering. The previous generation's character. We are going for the previous generation's features also. So this is a 3D system. And it is mainly based on the evolutionary relationship between the various organisms. See, from one generation, if you are going to next generation, what and all changes happening to next generation organisms of the next generation. That's the main thing we are studying in this phylogenetic system of classification, the changes which is happening through years. So the base of evolutionary relationship, that is the basic character or basic thing which we are considering in phylogenetic system of classification, and assumes that organisms belonging to the same taxa have a common ancestor. The organism which are belonging to the same taxa or same group, they have a common ancestor, and it is easily represented in the form of family tree called cladogram. Cladogram, the phylogenetic system of classification, the family tree which is representing, it is called as cladogram. No doubt, this is called as cladogram. And nowadays we are using the information from many sources, and this become more important when there is no supporting fossil evidence. If you are not getting any fossil evidence, this classification is becoming very important. Okay, so phylogenetic relationship, phylogenetic classification means we are considering what is the basic evolutionary relationship between various organisms. That is a basic thing, and this is a 3D system of classification. And Lamarck, who coined the term phylogeny, Lamarck, and the concept is brought. Who brought that? Ernest Haeckel. He brought the concept of phylogeny, but the term, it is coined by Lamarck. The evolutionary relationship between organisms, that is the basic thing for phylogenetic system of classification. And next is A.W. Eichler. He modified Bentham and Hooker's system of classification, and he placed gymnosperms in the beginning of chart. These single points you note down, because you may get MCQs from this for NEET question. So A.W. Eichler, he called as the pioneer of phylogenetic system of classification. He modified phylogenetic system of classification. His classification, A.W. Eichler's classification, is coming under phylogenetic system of classification. Means the 3D system. He studied, he made the prehistorical studies also for each organism. Note down this. He is called as the pioneer of phylogenetic system of classification. Then merits. What are all the plus points of these this classification, phylogenetic system of classification? In this system, families are arranged in increasing complexity of flowers. According to the increasing complexity of from simple flowers to complex flowers, like that they arranged families. The arrangement of families they made in the increasing complexity of flowers. Simple flowers and all coming under the lower category. Then the increasing complexity of flowers. Flower complexity is increasing means it is going to the higher group. What are all the demerits? Monocots were considered primitive to dicots. Why they consider it as a demerit? Why they are saying it is a demerit? Anyone is having any idea about it? Monocots were considered primitive to dicots. Which one is primitive, monocot or dicot? Actually, monocot or dicot, no, we can't consider them as which one is primitive and which one is new one. We can't consider, because in both monocot and dicot, we have members with advanced character and primitive character. In both categories, both in monocots and dicots, we have members with advanced character and primitive character. So according to this system, primitive forms that had naked flowers were kept initially. With naked, according to the phylogenetic, here I said based on complexity of flowers, they arranged the families. So in this system, primitive forms that had naked flowers, they were kept initially, and more advanced families have distinct perianth. What is perianth? You can see here, this is a flower. In this floral structure, this corolla and calyx. Calyx and corolla. Both are non-reproductive part. Androecium and gynoecium, that is called as a reproductive part. But here, calyx and corolla both are non-reproductive parts of a flower. The calyx and corolla, this is calyx and this is the petals. That part is called as corolla. The calyx and corolla together, it is called as perianth. So, with more advanced families that have distinct perianth, flowers with perianth, calyx and corolla and other extra structures, they consider these kind of flowers, plants with that kind of flowers as more advanced families, and they place them in higher category. Next is natural classification system. And natural classification, sorry, 1 minute. Okay. Then another phylogenetic system of classification, another classification which is coming under this category is Hutchinson and Oswald-Tipo. They proposed another classification that is also coming under phylogenetic classification system. And in that classification, they made families of flowering plants in 1959. In Hutchinson's classification, the points of that, trees and shrubs were believed to be more primitive than herbs. Trees and shrubs, in that classification, he made the points like trees and shrubs were more primitive than herbs, and dicots were thought as more primitive than monocots. They consider dicots are more primitive than monocots. And this polypetalous, actinomorphic, and solitary flowers are considered more primitive than gamopetalous, zygomorphic, and inflorescence, respectively. What is polypetalous? Polypetalous means petals are free from one another. Gamopetalous means petals are fused or petals are together. So, polypetalous and actinomorphic. Actinomorphic means a flower which can be divided into two equal halves, or they have radial symmetry. Through any radius, they can be made into two equal parts. We can cut in any way. It will become two equal parts. That is called as actinomorphic. So polypetalous means separate petals, and we can cut the flower into two equal halves to any radius. So such condition and solitary flowers and separate flowers, and they are considered such kind of plants with these characters. They are considered as more primitive than gamopetalous. This fused petals and one flower which we can cut into two equal halves only through one way. Such kind of flowers that are all called as the advanced characters in his classification, in Hutchinson's classification. And the division include orders that include families. Division does not include classes. There is one in between division and order, classes were not there. It was directly going to order. And next one is classical taxonomy. The basis was natural affinities. In this, natural affinities was the base. And how they classified and When the sample is collected, what and all the information we will get, that was the base of this classification. That much only they'll be having an idea. This affinities or relationship indicate all information available at the time the plant sample was collected. When the plant sample is getting collected, that time what and all the informations we have, based on that we are doing this work. Natural system of classification. For example of classical taxonomy is natural system of classification. These are the branches of taxonomy. Okay, classical taxonomy. Then next is numerical taxonomy. What is numerical taxonomy or phonetics? Numerical methods. We are using numerical methods too. These are all new terms. You have to note down. Phonetics or numerical taxonomy. What is that? In this method, we are evaluating the similarities and differences between the species. What we are doing? We are evaluating the similarities and difference between the species. For this, for all characters, if you are considering 10 characters like plant height, number of flowers, or like that, we are considering 10 characters or branches, the number of anthers which are present. On such characters, we are considering like that so many characters. For each character, we are giving or we are assigning some codes. We are giving some codes. So how we are doing this numerical taxonomy? If we are considering in this thing, what we are doing mainly, we are finding out the similarities and differences between the species. Two species, we are going to compare different species. So for that, we are considering some characters. For all characters, we are giving some codes. Then with the help of computer or some calculating methods, we are giving some interpretations. That is the procedure what we are following in numerical taxonomy. For each character, we are giving some code, and we are not giving any importance to any particular character. For in this method, in numerical taxonomy, all characters, even it is a vegetative character or sexual character, whatever may be, we are giving equal importance to all characters. And we are giving code to each character. So all characters that were analyzed are equally important. We can't specify or we can't give particular focus on a character. There is no special character. All characters are equally important in this. And the organization and analysis of data forms the core of this taxonomy. The analysis of data, that is the main thing in this taxonomy. And the family tree prepared of the phonetics is called as, based on phonetics, if you are preparing a family tree, that is called as dendrogram. Just before some time I mentioned cladogram. This is dendrogram. Don't get confused. Dendrogram. That is phylogenetic studies. Cladogram. It is related to phylogenetic studies. This is dendrogram. The family tree prepared from the phonetics or the numerical taxonomy. That is called as dendrogram. In numerical taxonomy, what and all we are doing? We are considering few characters, and for all characters, we are assigning some codes. And there is no special character. We are not giving any emphasis for a particular character. All characters are equally important in this. And the family tree, which is prepared from this studies, it is called as dendrogram. Next is cytotaxonomy. In this, cytotaxonomy means it is related to cell. The study is related to cell. From that word itself, it's clear. Cyto means related to cell. So karyotaxonomy or cytological information of the cell, chromosome number, structure and behavior of chromosome during meiosis. All these are the basis for this classification. In cytotaxonomy, which are all characters we are considering? The characters related to a cell. all cytological information of a cell, and chromosome number, chromosome structure, behavior of chromosome during meiosis. All these are the characters, or all these are the base for the cytotaxonomical studies. Next is biochemical or chemotaxonomy. This is related with plant chemical properties. Cytotaxonomy is with information of the cell, means chromosome, which is related to chromosome structure, chromosome number, all those things. But biochemical is related with the plant chemical properties. It is related with the plant chemical properties of the plant. For example, aromatic compound giving fragrance. The compounds which are giving fragrance, the flower fragrance, which is given by some aromatic compound. So such characters are considered in this. And the specific crystal structures of calcium oxalate or calcium carbonate being present. Or the crystal structures of this calcium oxalate or calcium carbonate which is present. Next, nowadays DNA sequencing or sequencing of DNA and chemical nature of proteins have also been used in taxonomy studies. What is DNA sequencing? What is DNA sequencing? Here you are learning a new term, DNA sequencing. What is that? It is a laboratory method which we are using to know about the sequence of the bases, which are all the bases, nitrogenous bases present, adenine, cytosine, guanine and thymine. These are the nitrogenous bases which are present in DNA. You learned that in 12th standard, everything in detail, in 12th standard chapters. This forms the DNA. So each we'll get through this DNA sequencing, we'll get an idea about the DNA, the sequences present in a DNA, and these bases will form codon or triplet, 3 bases. It will form a codon, and that codon it will code for that particular codon will code for an amino acid. That amino acid will form the protein. Got it? These codons, nitrogenous bases will form the codons, and that codons will form amino acid, and that amino acid will code for a protein. And these proteins are working on our body. Not only our body, on organisms' body, plant body and these proteins are working. So, DNA sequencing means laboratory method used to determine the sequence of or the nitrogenous bases in a DNA molecule. So in biochemical or chemotaxonomy, it is related with the plant chemical properties, like aromatic compounds which are giving smell or fragrance, or the specific crystal structures of calcium oxalate or calcium carbonate which are being present. And now we are using the DNA sequencing details to know the chemical nature of proteins. Next we are moving to the classification system of plant kingdom. So plant kingdom, it is classified into Thallophyta, Bryophyta, Pteridophyta, Gymnosperms and Angiosperms. First is algae or Thallophyta. So you have any doubt up to this? Need to repeat anything? Any slide you want me to repeat? Okay. The Thallophyta or algae. The branch of science that deals with the algae, it is called as algology or phycology. MCQ, no doubt. Algology or phycology, the branch of science that deals with algae. Algae, they are chlorophyll bearing, simple, thalloid, autotrophic and largely aquatic organism. They are chlorophyll bearing. In algae, chlorophyll is present and they are simple organisms. They are simple organisms and thalloid. Thalloid, I said, what is thalloid? Means they have thallus-like structure. What is that? Thallus means, or thalloid structure means that plant body which we can't differentiate into root, stem and leaves. Normally one plant will be having a root, stem and leaf. But in algae, we can't separate that structure, or we can't specify, there is no specific structures like root, stem and leaf, but they have chlorophyll. They are coming under plants. They are synthesizing their own food. They are autotrophic and they are largely aquatic. Aquatic means they are mainly present in water. Both freshwater and marine forms are present. Not only freshwater, but marine forms are also present. And they occur in variety of other habitat. Wherever moisture is present, like moisture, stones, soils and wood, they'll be present. They need the presence of moisture mainly. And some of them also occur in association with fungi. We have learned in the previous chapter about lichen. Lichen is association between algae and fungi. In that, what fungus part is doing? Fungus part is absorbing nutrients for this. And what algal part is doing? Algal part is having chlorophyll content. Just now I said algae, they have chlorophyll content. So with the help of light, they are synthesizing their own food. So lichens are the association between algae and fungi. And they are present in some animals also. They have some association with animals also. You can see here. For example, sloth bear. This is a sloth bear. That greenish appearance is due to the presence of algae. So the general features. The branch of science, it is called as algology or phycology. Algae have chlorophyll and they are simple. They have thalloid structures. Means plant body we can't differentiate, and autotrophic, and they are largely aquatic. Both marine and freshwater forms are present, and they occur in variety of other habitat, and they need the presence of moisture. With the presence of moisture, they will be present, and some of them they occur in association with fungi. It is called as lichen, and an animal association. For that example is sloth bear. Next, the form and size of algae, they are highly variable. The form and size of algae is highly variable. They have microscopic forms and large forms are also present. Microscopic forms, example for microscopic form is Chlamydomonas. You can see here, this is the Chlamydomonas. It is microscopic and unicellular. Which is unicellular algae? Chlamydomonas. It is unicellular algae. It is microscopic. Next, colonial forms. Example for colonial forms is volvox. It forms colonies. It is the colonial form. Example is volvox. See this one. Next, filamentous forms. Example, Eulothrix and Spirogyra. In 11th standard, you will get this in laboratory studies. Spirogyra, the filamentous algae, you will get as a slide. In laboratory, you will learn about Spirogyra. So, filamentous forms. Examples, Eulothrix and Spirogyra. Next is marine form, kelps. This form, massive plant bodies. This is marine form. See, it is having leaf-like structures and a big one. So, this is the marine form, kelps. So, the size are highly variable from microscopic forms to the larger one. You can see the microscopic one, unicellular one is Chlamydomonas. Example for unicellular microscopic is Chlamydomonas. Next, the colonial form of algae, that is volvox. Next, Ulothrix and Spirogyra. These are filamentous algae. Kelps, that is marine form. All these examples you should note down. These are important MCQs for NEET exam. Chlamydomonas, Volvox, Ulothrix and Spirogyra. Then Kelps, that is the marine form. So I think today this much is enough. Any doubts? Up to this it's clear?
Yes, ma'am.
What about other three students? Clear. Soumya. Okay, next. Okay, so we'll see in the next class. If you have any doubt means you can ask me. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Bye.